What's up guys, NicheTube here, back with another video. I just want to make a quick video and share some insight on what I'm learning right now. So I'm really into law, legal reasoning, that sort of stuff, and I want to share my insight on Law of Torts, which is a very important segment of legal reasoning and legal aptitude. So if you're interested into that sort of thing, stay tuned till the end. So, before we understand what a tort is, there's some terminology that we have to get a grip on. So first of all, what is a tort? Defendant, plaintiff, judge, liquidated damages, uncodified, and a legal injury. So if you know what these terms are, then you'll have no trouble at all understanding the rest of this lesson. So, a tort. Before we get into the definition of a tort, the three main characters, or I should say there's five main characters in a court scene. We have the judge, of course, who makes the decisions, lawyers, defendants, plaintiffs, and the jury. The jury is usually the public audience. The defendant is the person that's been accused of committing a crime or a sinful act. The plaintiff is the person that was impacted by that crime in most cases, or he's accusing the plaintiff. The plaintiff is the one that's excusing the defendant for committing a crime. And the lawyers are advocates for the defendants. Liquidated damages. So anyways, now that we know what a defendant, plaintiff, and judge are, you can easily understand the definition of a tort. So in a tort, the defendant omits one of his legal duties, which inflicts a legal injury upon the plaintiff. So legal injury is not actually, injuring someone. In some cases it could be, but a legal injury refers to either property damage through, let's say, vandalism or trespassing, or it could also cause some sort of harm to the person. Bodily harm, that is. So, a tort occurs when the defendant omits his legal duty and inflicts a legal injury on the plaintiff. And this is much less serious than a crime. Therefore, it's uncodified, meaning that there's no punishment defined in the penal code of a region or a country. And the only punishment is via liquidated damages. So the judge usually chooses the punishment, whether it be an amount of money that has to be paid or just some light community service. The punishment isn't too severe. So in a tort, we're just basically violating some of the fundamental legal duties that we must commit to as citizens. And usually if we commit this sinful act, or if we don't abide by our legal duties, then it would amount to a tort. Would be charged with a tort. But unless the legal rights of another person are infringed, then it wouldn't be considered a tort. So suppose, let's say you violated one of your legal duties, you omitted one of your legal duties, but it didn't cause harm to anyone. So then you wouldn't be charged with a tort, because according to the rules, the plaintiff has to be impacted through a legal injury. So either their property has to be damaged, or they have to be injured and cause bodily harm. But if none of that happens, then you're not charged with a tort. So let's move on to the actual nitty-gritty. Law of torts. So the word tort is derived from a Latin word tortum, meaning twisted. So you're already getting somewhat of a negative connotation. Evil, wicked, twisted. So a tort, a person's behavior, in this case the defendant's behavior or actions, infringes the legal rights of another person, the plaintiff, that is. So as I mentioned earlier, a tort is relatively less serious than a crime, and typically the negligence of the defendant is what leads to an injury. It's not a personal decision, it's just being negligent, being in a hurry. And the compensation is liquidated damages, so there's no defined punishment, just pay some money or commit to a few hours of community service. So elements of a tort: the defendant wrongfully omits his or her legal duties, and the plaintiff is impacted by the legal injury committed by the defendant. But remember, in a tort, the legal rights of a plaintiff must be violated. So If the legal rights aren't violated, then it won't amount to a tort. So let's take an example of a person that's accused of committing a tort, but it's not actually a tort. So suppose 3 large IT companies come together and form a larger conglomerate. So obviously they're eating up the competition. And let's suppose one of the competitors accuses this conglomerate of 3 IT companies and accuses them of committing a tort. Well, this would not be a tort because, first of all, these companies coming together, it didn't really cause any harm to society. It may have caused losses for the competitor company, but it's their business failure, so you can't blame it on these 3 conglomerates. So since the legal rights have not been violated, then this would not amount to a tort. So this is an example of when the legal rights of a plaintiff are not violated, so this wouldn't amount to a tort. When the 3 IT companies came together to form a conglomerate, this doesn't really affect the society at all unless they built a larger office on some government land or in someone's house, or violating someone's property by where they're building the office. And they obviously did none of that if it wasn't specified. So this would not amount to a tort. So a tort versus a crime. A tort typically impacts an individual, where the crime impacts the society as a whole. A tort is obviously much less serious. Tort cases are taken to civil court, while criminal cases are taken to the criminal court. In a tort case, the burden of proof lies with the plaintiff. And a burden of proof is, it's the plaintiff's burden, and the plaintiff is the one that has to collect all the proof. Whereas in a criminal case, the burden of the proof lies with the prosecution. So it's not the plaintiff's job, it's not the lawyer's job. It's the job of the prosecution to actually find any proof. The compensation in a tort is unliquidated damages, so just defined by the judge, a few hours of community service, or perhaps a large sum amount of money. Whereas in a criminal case, the compensation is usually imprisonment or perhaps sent to the death row. Torts are uncodified, meaning that the punishment is not defined in the penal code of a country or region, whereas a crime is codified, so the punishment is defined in the Indian penal code or the US penal code, or whatever that may be. So this concludes a quick video on the law of torts. Feel free to comment down below if you have any questions. I'll make a full in-depth video on the law of torts and other legal reasoning questions as soon as possible. So as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and got a great learning experience. And until the next video, this is Nishal Tube signing off. Peace.